Hello and welcome to another one of our slightly irregular videos about upcoming games which we have. This time we are here to talk about Splatoon, which is what feels like Nintendo's first new IP in about 3 decades. I'm Stefan, or Teflon, whichever way you know me, and this time, instead of having Chris here to do the introductions, I'm doing the introductions, and I am joined by Dom, who is our reviews editor.
Hello.
Okay, so yeah, Dom, in, let's say, one word or more, what were your thoughts on Splatoon?
Fun.
Well, yeah, you come in at the minimum bar there, one word, okay, good.
Yeah. No, I think it's really, really, really good. It's quite clearly a Nintendo IP, and I think there's so much creativity on show there, but I think as well, because they're coming into this new sort of online shooter thing that, let's face it, Nintendo aren't known for, there's probably some teething problems in there as well, which maybe they're going to be able to sort out with patches and things, which, I mean, their support for their games has become a lot better recently. Yeah, there's still sort of a few niggles for me, I think.
Oh, really? Okay, well, I think that what they had on the show, it was just the one game mode. It was Turf War, which was basically cover the floor with as much paint as possible, and if anything gets in the way of your paint and dies, well, that's a happy byproduct. It's sort of about as cutesy and inoffensive a shooter as you could possibly get in that regard. And they also had, it was 4v4 multiplayer, as opposed to, I don't know, say Battlefield 64 players or whatever like that. So it was also quite a small scale. And I think the other thing that I noticed was that the rounds were really quite short.
Yeah, very short.
Yeah, they were just like two, was it two? It was about 3 minutes, I think, between each round.
Yeah, and I think that was working really well, certainly in terms of the testing that they were doing. And it put everything on a bit of a knife edge. And like that warehouse level, I think those 3 minute rounds worked very well. The larger one, which was called the sort of the more city-based one.
I thought it was more like an oil rig kind of thing. It seemed to be kind of like out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
I almost kind of expect Big Boss to show up, and it's his oil rig, and you've invaded it. And you just happen to be playing Phantom Pain all of a sudden.
Well, they've had Snake before, so
That's true. They have. Yeah, no, I kind of agree. Like with that map, it was very easy to get stuck in one area. And because the two teams, they're basically working to cover the floor and cover over each other's paint. Like you'd go and do one circuit, and then you'd come around and you'd notice that you had to do another circuit of just splattering the floor with paint and stuff like that. But in terms of like actually shooting each other, how did you get on with the controls? Because for me, that was a slight sticking point. It needed a little bit of getting used to.
Yeah, I think certainly if you're using the motion controls, which is the standard setting, it definitely takes a lot of sort of a rethink of how you behave, particularly when you're still using the camera to pan left and right. So you're not sort of waving your gamepad all over the place trying to aim at people. But
well, you kind of are. It's the kind of I know not a lot of people will be familiar with, let's say, Uncharted Golden Abyss on PlayStation Vita. Well, I say a lot. Some people will be familiar with that game, where it was basically you have standard dual stick first-person shooter controls or third-person shooter controls, and then the motion was just there for a little bit of aftertouch for that slight precision. And it's not like that here, where you've got, as you said, the right analog stick still controls the horizontal movement, but then the motion controls of tilting the gamepad controls all motion, all of the angling of your viewpoint, which I think was quite interesting. And it's It is tricky to get used to. You can turn that off in the options, which I tried, and I still wasn't entirely sure about it. Maybe because I just had motion controls. I don't know. But I think it's... I don't know. I think maybe it's the best halfway house situation that they can come up with.
Maybe, and maybe it's a very Nintendo solution to something that they perhaps see as being a format that you have to be very precise in. And you don't have to be as precise in this, obviously, because you're mainly chucking paint everywhere.
Well, I think, maybe they're not going for precision. They're just going for just sort of like, this is what a lot of people who use Nintendo consoles of late will be used to. Because you had the Wii, that was all motion controls whenever it was a shooter, and now you've got this, and you've got that kind of, I forget the name, I think it might have been something that they added to the Wind Waker or something like that, or some of the mini-game compilations where you have got these motion controls, and you're aiming and it was Zombie. Was it Zombie U? Oh, I don't know. Yeah. There's a couple of instances where it's all like you aim and shoot with the motion controller, which, yeah, maybe. But as you said,
fun.
Yeah, it is fun. And as you said, you don't really need that precision because the 4 guns, like only one of them actually needs any kind of aiming, really. Well, you do need to aim, but the splat roller is basically, it is just a paint roller, and it's huge as well. You just roll around the maps and you just roll it. You've got that. You also had the Splatter Shot and Splatter Shot Junior, and then the Splat Charger, which was kind of like the sniper rifle in this game.
Yeah.
And I don't know, do you get to play with all 4 of those?
I used everything apart from the paint roller, which part of that was in the fact that a lot of people seem to be playing with that one. So I tried out the other 3, so the little Uzi one, the standard Splatter Shot, and then the long shot, is it called?
No, the Splat Charger, the sniper
Splat
rifle.
Charger.
Yeah.
Which is sort of like a paint sniper rifle-esque type affair. There are some more weapons which we haven't seen. So that'll be interesting. I think a lot of people seemed to be favouring the paint roller because it was probably pretty easy to run people over with it.
Yeah, but I think it was... Well, whenever I tried it, and the thing that I started to try and do when people were coming at me with the paint roller was just to walk away.
Yeah.
You sort of back away and you shoot them, and then chances are they're going to die, or you chuck one of the grenades, or there's one which was kind of like a weird triangle pyramid grenade. It's basically a Tetley bag full of paint which explodes. That's the best way I can describe it.
Yeah.
There were like water balloons filled with paint, that kind of thing. So you had those as well. So I found that like I was quite easy to kill with it, and also other people. So I know I did see 1 or 2 people online saying that the paint roller was a bit overpowered, but I'm not entirely sure that it is. I think it's one of those things where initially it's just like, oh, I understand how this works. Oh yeah, I can run people over. It's fantastic. But it's not. I think what it is very good for, and what all of the weapons do in some way tie into, is just this need to, like, it's not about killing the other team. It's about covering the floor and getting the whole percentage, or the majority of the floor covered in your paint. You've got the paint roller, which is very good for just like you just run down a corridor and you've got this entire long strip of paint which is just for you. And also that like the other point is that the paint allows you to be much more mobile because you can turn into the little squid.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I think that's such an amazing mechanic. And when you spawn at the other end of the map, and you can either respawn closer to people, can't you?
No, it's one of the tricks that you have on the little gamepad is that you can tap on your teammates' names, and then you will sort of like catapult across the map to exactly where they are. So when you're playing and you're out in the world, like you will occasionally see a little circle saying, "Oh, by the way, one of your teammates is going to join you. Try not to get dead or ambushed, or let them land in the other person in the other team's colour." because I did once or twice jump across the map and then just get murdered.
Yeah,
It's quite bad. But
yeah, I mean the squid form though is good for moving quite quickly around the map, and I think that took a bit of getting used to. That your standard walking speed isn't really very fast. Traipse about a bit.
Yeah, if you think about it, like the squid form is almost kind of like the sprint of this game.
Yeah.
You do go like maybe 1.5 times faster or something like that, and you are more mobile, but you can't shoot obviously in this form. You have to switch forms again to get out and to start shooting people again. It was cool.
I mean, one of my favourite things was painting up the walls of things and using the squid form to climb all the way to the top and getting getting sort of a sniper point, I guess, and chucking grenades and firing from up there. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was quite good. So I think we've covered most of the game, but there are 2 final little points which I want to talk about. I want to talk about the cat. What is going on with the cat?
He's a very important character.
He is. I assume like he's the main story. Is the narrative focus of the single player in the game.
quite how a well-dressed cat ties in with a game about ink firing squid people. I'm not sure. No, unless he preys on the squid people. So,
I'm not entirely sure about that. No, so I'm not sure I'm not sure you could say that he's well dressed. Like, so just to explain briefly, like when you get to the end of the round, you've got the big countdown going down on the screen. It's sort of like the last moments of being able to cover the floor in paint, and then you have a screen pop up which has got this fat cat, and he's not well dressed, but in his fur he has got the lines of like dungarees and a bow tie. And it's like you look at him, you just think, "What on earth is this?" But then he is presiding over the swingometer almost of how
very current,
very political, of how much paint has been covering the floor on each side, and it always goes to around about like 20%, and then it stops, and then the cat goes ding, and does this weird animation with a little flag, and it's just. And then it quickly tells you which side's won, which side's lost. And then but it's just so ever so slightly bizarre. But
it works.
It does work. It's one of those things. One thing that I haven't said is that like the game's general atmosphere kind of reminds me of Jet Set Radio.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's that sort of blue sky Sega vibe going on 100%.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes from the kind of music that you have in the background is very like it's that what was I think it was Neo Tokyo and Jet Set Radio.
Yeah, it's kind of J-pop.
It's kind of got that ever so slightly punky, like late early 90s punk rockish kind of feel to it. Kind of, maybe. I'm describing that terribly badly, but I'm sure some people will figure out what I'm trying to say and understand. And I really enjoyed having that atmosphere in the game. I like that. And the final thing which I really enjoyed was the little squid mini game as you're waiting for a game to load,
which in sometimes is more compelling. That's not to say that the rest of the game is bad, because it's really not. But there were times when the game had loaded and I got a bit annoyed that I was not allowed to finish my squid jumping game.
Yeah, exactly. So this is actually like a really nice little touch, because it's not a real Nintendo game. I'm fairly certain of that. But it's basically this faux NES game where you are basically just a little squid and you jump up from one platform to the next platform and so on and so forth, and you have to get to the top and like jump into like golden, like a canary or something. I'm not 100% sure what it is that you're jumping into, and you've got all these levels, you're doing it against the clock, and like you've only got like the maybe minute tops before the game actually found you a couple of other players to play against in the actual game that is Splatoon. But there's more than enough time to like get through one level maybe and onto the next one. And yeah, goddamn, I just want them to. They have to put that up onto the eShop. Like,
Yeah.
And they could actually put it in there as a virtual console game and just go and just like snigger to themselves in the background as they're doing it, because it's just such a nice little game.
It is very good.
Yeah.
I think there are my couple of problems really with the game were sort of the lack of voice chat. I think that's going to be very interesting for an online shooter. And it kind of makes it feel a bit more of a throwback to the Sega days and sort of games like I guess like Outrigger and things, where you can't communicate with the other players in an effective way. And I think when you're trying to draw people, and I know obviously the map on the gamepad, you should start to get used to looking at that, seeing where you need to go, where your teammates are, and that I think if they don't implement voice chat, which I mean they've kind of said we're not doing this, we don't believe in it. If they don't implement it, I think people will start to find ways around it and to work more effectively as a team. But I think people that are used to your standard Xbox and PS shooters will find it a bit jarring, really.
Yeah, I think that is kind of mitigated by the rounds being so short. On the D-pad, you do have like a couple of little commands. You've got like, "Hey, come here" or whatever. I remember seeing that. I kept tapping "nice" whenever I died for some reason. And like, I'm not sure that you really need it. It would be nice to have it, especially if you can sort of like team up with your friends. Then obviously you want to be able to chat to them. I guess that I remember back when we streamed the first Mario Kart DLC that we had. What we did there was we had a horrifically complicated setup where we were talking over Skype, and then Peter was streaming it, and he was like overlaying the Skype onto the Mario.
Yeah. So once again, Nintendo not entirely going with modern online thinking, I think.
Well, maybe with the Wii U 2 or whatever it is that they call it. The Wii 2, the Wii.
Oh dear.
They always seem to be like almost one generation behind in some aspects. Maybe they'll catch up in this regard soon. Alright, well, I think that's a nice place to leave it. So thanks a lot, Dom, for sitting down and chatting with me.
Cheers, mate.
And yeah, Splatoon is out, is it at the end of this month?
It is 29th.
There were all of these adverts in the game, like saying, this is when the game's coming out, and it just went straight out of my head, because I've already pre-ordered the game, so I don't need to know this. Yeah, so you said May 29th, that's when it will be out, and yeah, it is looking pretty good.